All right, welcome back. We continue live right here on Pittsburgh CW. Bob Pompeani with you until 11 o'clock. And then we'll join you tonight for the late news on KDKA after the Grammys. That the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. And on the program tonight, we have Colin Dunlap, Paul Zeiss, and Chris Mack. A lot to get into, including Steeler topics like Randy Fiegner, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Haley. How will he do in Cleveland as offensive coordinator? We'll also get into a lot of Pirate stuff as well as the Penguins. And Kevin Stallings at the University of Pittsburgh and what has become an 0-9 start for a very young team, which is basically going through a baptism by fire in the ACC. Talked about basketball. Pitt lost yesterday to Syracuse at home. They had an 8-point lead, and the game before that they had, I believe, 15-point lead before they lost to NC State, but they're certainly playing better than they were earlier in the ACC. It hasn't manifested itself in wins so far. But if I were to ask you, do you give Kevin Stallings another year at least? I mean, this is only year 2. It was a tough rebuild for sure. Or do you get impatient? And again, people are going to look at stands and see empty stands, and that's always of a concern. Let me know what you think about that. But Duquesne played a tough game at Rhode Island, the #1 team in the Atlantic 10 yesterday. They had the lead. They ended up losing that game. Big game last night in West Virginia. The Mountaineers had a big lead, 17 points at one point, and they let it slip away as John Calipari's young team came through with a very impressive win, I thought, as they win that game, pretty much going away down in West Virginia. And Robert Morris today, we'll show you highlights of this at 11 o'clock at home at PPG Paints Arena today, taking on Wagner in a showdown in the NEC. They had the lead at halftime. They lost the game. Wagner came back and won. All of that coming on. And, of course, not only is Duquesne men's basketball team, but their women are really playing well. Dan Burt and Keith Dambrot, 2 very promising coaches for Duquesne University. So there's a lot to get into, so let's waste no more time and get right to the phones. David in Finleyville. Hey, David, how are you?
Fine, thanks, Bob. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
2 questions for you. The Flames just waived Yager, and I was wondering if he comes here, you think he'll be willing to play as a third-line center for us? Thanks.
No, and honestly, I don't think that. I think that ship has sailed. I think you'll see him go to probably someplace overseas if he wants to continue to play. There weren't many takers, if you remember, when he went to Calgary originally, and so now had injury early in that season, and now he's out there looking for work. And I don't think the Penguins are a team that can utilize the services of Jaromir Jagr. I think they're going to be looking more to the lines of, maybe what Ottawa has up there, because they're struggling. They may need some change and need some players. Different sorts of players, and they have some guys on their roster who are highly skilled and pretty good. A lot of the names surrounding Jean-Gabriel Pageau, a 25-year-old center iceman who's a pretty good defensive player as well, signed for the next 2 years at $3 million plus. Can they fit that in? Well, it depends on what you give up and what Ottawa would want. So trade deadline's coming up at the end of this month. We'll see how it goes. Dan in Harrison City. What's up, Dan? How are you?
Hey, Bob. How you doing?
I'm good, thank
you. Listen, real quick on Pitt athletics. Recruiting people from the South to come up here to play that's never been in this area. These people are touring Penn State, West Virginia, Ohio State. What does Pitt have to sell these guys to say, hey, look, we have 20,000 people to come and watch football versus 100,000. Like, how do you sell these athletes to come up here for these programs? That's my question.
The question is, it's always about winning. You got to win consistently and not just a few here and a few there. I think winning attracts everything. I think winning in baseball is the best promotional item you can have. You can put anything on the calendar you want, from fireworks to free giveaways. Ultimately, what keeps people involved is winning, and even those who aren't interested necessarily in the X's and O's so much, but they get attracted to the event. The event becomes bigger, it's more vibrant, it's more attended by people. I think right now, when you look, if you go to a Pitt basketball game, it's hard to sell anyone on the program based on what few people show up there, and that's a concern certainly for Heather Lyke, and one that she has to take issue with. But at the same time, and thanks for the call, man, appreciate it. You're also in a position where you're developing a young team. Kevin Stallings, this is really his first year of bringing in the kind of people he wanted. At least he had 7 freshmen, and they're all playing significant minutes. So by virtue of that, they should be in position to improve. And if you add something to that, maybe you'll see some increase in you better, because that's where it starts. You got to start winning games, and they've gotten closer, but they're still in a very difficult conference. Now face the challenge of going on the road for 3 straight games at 2 of those ranked teams as well. 9-5, it's Terry in Gibsonia. Hey, Terry, how you doing?
Good. I know everyone's disappointed we didn't make it to the AFC Championship, but not sure how they would do against the Patriots with our D-backs, and we don't have a playmaker like Palomalu that that can really make a difference. And I think that's someone we need to draft in the future to move forward and be a difference maker in this league.
Or sign. I mean, you can go out in free agency and get somebody as well. I think they may have to cut their losses with Mike Mitchell potentially. That's a $5 million savings if you do. You know, they're going to have to draft a linebacker. There's no doubt about it. They don't have anyone on their roster who's capable of filling the shoes of Ryan Shazier, so they're going to have to do something there. And you also have to worry about depth on the defensive line, I think. They need to come up with more people there to keep that rotation going. Offense doesn't need all that much. But they're never against drafting someone who could be of help offensively if he so should be available. You know, Juju Smith-Schuster was a guy they really liked. He was available when they took him. They didn't necessarily need a wide receiver last year, but they took him because they liked what he had. So we'll see how that goes. But they have a lot of needs. And I do believe if they had played New England this time, they would have made it a really good game. They made it a good game the first one, and they should have won. How one play can dictate how the path of a postseason goes, because if that Jesse James holds up as a touchdown, all of a sudden they get Tennessee here in the first week instead of Jacksonville, likely win that game and then play New England nonetheless in Pittsburgh. So it all changes on one play. Let's go to Ken in Greensburg. Hey, Ken, welcome to the Sports Call presented by Ireland Contracting. How are you?
Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, in response to the Pirates in the opening game, yes, they'll sell out the opening game because Pittsburgh's a strong traditional city, and by tradition they'll sell out the first game, but that'll be the only sellout for the year. Myself, I usually go to Bradenton every year. I won't go this year, and I usually go to about 15 games a year. I might go to one game a year, but that's about it. I'm getting kind of leery about the whole thing.
So what do you want to see? What do you want to see from them?
Well, I want them to spend money and get some, top prospects like Milwaukee, like you said. I want them to go the way Milwaukee's going, and they're not going to go in the other direction.
I give Milwaukee credit because every time they're in this position, they did it before with CC Sabathia. Remember when they were making a push? It didn't result in a world championship.
Oh, yeah.
Zach Greinke, they made a move there. So now they're doing the same thing. They feel they have a good enough team. And if you look at their lineup and team they had last year, you add this. A guy like Santana finds himself maybe without a position right now, and he hit 30 home runs last year. They have Shaw. They have a lot of guys, not even talking about Ryan Braun, who now in that outfield gives them a lot.
Yeah, they'll give Cubs run for the money, definitely, but Pirates are going the other way.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Appreciate the call. That's what they need to show, not just lip service. Just go out and do it, and it doesn't you bring in all the prospects you want, but as we have seen, prospects, even the ones you own, you bring in yourself, you draft, you develop, don't turn out to be good at times, and it's a risky proposition. At some point, you have to go and get established people to come in and play. And I think for Garrett Cole in particular, I would have liked to have seen. Now, you can argue with me that Musgrove and Colin Moran at third could be good players. We'll see. They haven't had any long-term sample size. Is the Pirate drafting good enough and evaluation process good enough that these guys can come in and become really good? We'll see. They thought so with Drew Hutchinson, and that didn't work. And, I mean, it's a tough business. There's no doubt. You're going to hit and miss a lot, no matter who you are. But in this case, they have to hit a lot more than they've missed. Line 2 we go. It's Barry in Trafford. Barry, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for calling.
They traded, it was either McCutcheon or the pitcher for somebody, and they got a pitcher back. And I was reading in the paper this morning where he's going to have an 80-game suspension whenever the season starts.
Yeah, how about that? That's the Pirates, an 80-game PED suspension. So whatever that means, he did something that he wasn't supposed to do, and that's what you have. 412-575-2600. We have Jack in Brownsville, Rick in Elizabeth. We're going to take a break right now. We'll get more calls on the way. Again, thanks for joining us. We're up until 11 o'clock, so if you have a phone call you'd like to make or an opinion you'd like to fly, this is your place to do it right now. Pittsburgh CW.